BaconBit, bub.
Why am I singing like Wolverine?
Cyclops.
Scott. Hey, everyone. Welcome to our BaconBit of X-Men 97.
What is X-Men 97, Kent?
You know, it's weird. It means 1997. This is a continuation of the X-Men animated series that was ended prematurely, would we say? It just kind of ended back in the day.
I don't even remember how it ended.
It didn't. Essentially, they went back in time. They changed the studio, and so the animation went way weird. And I think, and granted, we do have some help here today that may tell us what happened at the end there, but it just was really lackluster. I remember maybe someone was missing, or maybe I'm getting that confused with Spider-Man, the animated series.
Was Apocalypse involved in the finale?
No, Sinister was.
Sinister.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, I'm getting a no.
This is from the 90s.
Yeah, so
I don't know what's happening.
It's been a minute.
You were alive in the 90s.
I was barely alive.
But this is one of those things like I don't know. Maybe I'll give our brief history of the show, but this is a show I grew up on at 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings. This is the show I'd watch. And if my dad made me mow the lawn, I would be really upset because it was weekly TV. It's destination viewing. You couldn't stream it like you can now.
Kids, we didn't have things you could record it with unless you had a VHS tape and a very quick finger.
Yeah, exactly. But I loved this show. This, Batman the Animated Series, and Spider-Man were like my go-to shows back in the day. And still. But I haven't really grown.
So you've seen all the episodes?
Yes.
And how many episodes are there?
There are 10 episodes, I believe.
Okay. And about 20 minutes each?
No, actually. Well, here's the thing.
Just over.
The thing with Disney Plus, they say it's 35 minutes. Really, it's like 29 minutes with credits.
Yeah.
And then one of them, the last one, is about 42, 43 minutes.
Okay.
And so, thankfully, like it feels like a normal drama-length show because it needs to be.
Okay. Well, so you've seen them all.
Yeah.
I've seen none, but I'm planning to see them. Zach, you've
Zach's
seen
kind of
none?
chilling out.
No. It's never happening in my life.
Never.
That's way too much
Did you
homework.
ever watch?
The last kind of homework I want to do is Marvel homework.
Yeah, but did you ever watch X-Men back in the day?
I watched the occasional episode, but I would not call myself a watcher. It was basically, I accidentally saw X-Men while I was waiting for Spider-Man.
Really?
Yeah.
Joel, what about you? Did you watch
Here's the
it?
thing.
Oh, yeah.
Was this on in 1997? Like, when did the show actually start?
It ended in 96, and so
Okay.
97 would be the next season they would air.
So I was very young, and I've always thought that X-Men conceptually is a little bit, little upper crust, a little higher.
It is.
And Spider-Man's like, oh boy, hope I can make my rent. X-Men's like, but what if civil rights? And I've never really
and we were 10 going, yeah, sure.
That sounds great. So I just never really connected with it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I guess the guy who says bub is cool, and the guy who shoots lasers from his face is cool. But that's
Nobody
kind of
thought
weird.
Cyclops was cool but me. Okay.
Have you seen his hair? It's pretty
Hey,
cool.
Cyclops is a Leonardo of the X-Men.
See, and I don't like Leonardo. I love Cyclops.
Really?
Yeah.
They're the same character.
I know.
The show did a disservice to
Oh,
Cyclops.
by the way, we have
Back in the day.
guests.
Oh, yeah. Hey. So let's welcome our guests. So we have here today is two previous listeners, actually, who are just, maybe you were giving away a spoiler for how they feel about this show, or maybe it's just their enthusiasm for the show. Two previous listeners. We have Sam Ma and Chad Ilham.
Hey, guys.
Welcome to the show.
Hey, Chad.
What's up?
You guys just going to talk to each other now?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be the whole Bacon Bit. It's just a conversation between you guys. Give us your histories with X-Men back in the 90s. Sam, we'll start with you.
Okay, so when did it premiere? It was 1992.
I think 92, yeah.
Okay, so I was 9 years old in 1992. I think I was the bullseye of the target demographic for this show. Like,
Was this like an intro to comic books for you, like comic book heroes?
so I was already
Like you knew Superman a little bit,
Unless I'm
maybe.
getting my timelines mixed up. I was a big fan of Batman the Animated Series, which I think
About the same time.
came out first. And then X-Men was my real intro to anything Marvel or
Sure.
anything really other than Batman.
Yeah, it's colorful, basically.
Yeah, colorful. You had varied personalities, lots of different characters, and I loved it. Joel, I think you mentioned the VHS tape. I think in my parents' basement right now there are VHS tapes of my recordings of this show.
Yeah.
It formulated so much of what I love even today. So I was right there, 9 years old when this came out, and I loved it.
And you felt like you were 9 watching the show again.
We'll get there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was 2 years old when it came out, and I was very much into the civil rights aspect of X-Men.
Sure.
I just
Perfect
thought Rogue
audience
was
for
purdy.
it. Yeah. So no, my first Halloween costume was Wolverine. I remember that very distinctly and stuff. For some reason, my mom kept the costume, and now my nephews have it. It's kind of crazy, but I mean, the
Okay.
show ended in 1996, so I was 6 years old, and so I
Yeah.
just got to see reruns of it. So I never got much of the storyline until later when we got the VHS tapes and kind of got to go through it. And then when it came on streaming, I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this and run through that. So
Does it feel dated if you watch it now?
Yeah, a
Because
little.
what that show does really well is adapt the comic stories, not verbatim, but really, really well. Better than we've ever seen in the movies. And the animation is 90s animation and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I thought they did it pretty well. I haven't gone back to watch it, though.
I think the thing, when you go back and watch it, the animation is just a little bit like it just kind of
Loose?
Like, no, yeah, where it just kind of like stutters through.
Sure, yeah.
It's still really beautiful. It's all hand drawn, like you can see it until the final season, where we just don't really talk about that one.
Sure.
But the dialogue is the funny part because they're trying to be more adult while also trying to be a kids show, and so it makes the dialogue very like truncated, like very shortened. They have to try and explain things without explaining things and keeping it really tight. It still is really good. Like I was watching a couple episodes a day to try and refresh my memory of how it was and how it went through and stuff. So.
I think it holds up really well. I've showed my kids, not the whole series, but we've been going through it, and maybe it's just the nostalgia goggles for me, but I still love it.
I've watched that first episode, Night of the Sentinel.
Yeah.
So many times.
Oh yeah, me
believe
too.
So many times because I keep watching it with a new kid.
Oh, yeah.
But then we get a few in and then it kind of peter off.
Sure, I get it.
Yeah.
Where did the dinosaurs come in?
That's about the end of
Season
season 3.
Is that the Savage
Yeah, it
Land?
could be-
Yeah,
yeah,
somewhere in
Savage
there.
Land.
I've
Season 3.
I've seen the dinosaurs many times.
Yeah, it's a season finale where they play into Savage Land, and that's where Sinister shows up. Is the Savage Land stuff
So tell us how that ends. Is this a continuation show?
loose,
Or is this a redemption show because it didn't really end?
No, it did end. I think you're forgetting the finale of the original series, and that's I was shaking my head no at you at the
So
beginning.
does Xavier take off?
The last episode is there's an assassination attempt
last episode
on
of the
Xavier.
original series.
Correct. Yeah, we're no spoilers yet. There's an assassination attempt on Xavier, and basically the Shi'ar Empire, the aliens that they've dealt with before, come down and save him. They say, "Hey, we can save his life, but he has to come out of the galaxy to
He's
live
also
with
in
us."
love with one of them.
And Lilendra. And so that was how it ended, was Xavier leaving Earth and leaving all the students there.
Okay.
And it really does. This new series picks up about, I think it's a year later, but they're all still dealing with the fact that their leader isn't there anymore.
Yeah, realistically, all you need to know is at the start of this one, it ended. Xavier's gone. That's all the homework.
Could you
need
jump
to know.
into this series without ever having watched the
If,
original
if
series?
you just know that Xavier is gone and that he was a big deal, yeah, you could just
and they
jump
spell
right
that
into
out.
it.
Is that
They're like-
because Jean blew him up in The Last Stand?
No,
That makes
we
me
don't
so
talk
mad.
about that. Zach.
Spoilers.
Are we going to talk about the Last Jedi of X-Men movies here? Are we going to get into that?
There's a few of those in the X-Men
There is
franchise.
a handful of them.
That's half the franchise.
Yeah, so Joel, they
Yeah.
spell everything out. They're essentially being like, our leader's gone, but Cyclops is our leader. And so they say that
Wow,
a few
dialogue
times.
sounds amazing.
Yeah. It's kind of the same sort of dialogue.
It's a little. Here's the thing is, and maybe this gets into a discussion post background, but when I was watching this show and you're listening to the dialogue and you're listening to the story, I kept going back and thinking to myself, who is this made for?
Right.
Oh, it's made for us. Absolutely.
Like my kid, my son, he's like 6 years old, so he's exactly the age I was. All into superheroes, loves all of them, and I've even shown him some of the Marvel movies and gone through that thing. I'm thinking, oh, this is perfect to get him into this and show him this. But then you start watching it, and they swear in this now. They didn't in
Only
the
a
old
little
series,
bit.
but
Like
they
farmer
still
words?
they never did.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like they do that and they get a little bit more into.
It's a little more mature for sure.
It's definitely more mature.
This does feel like a love letter to us. You're right.
It absolutely
because
is.
for the most part, and there's a few exceptions or actors that have passed on. They
Love
have,
letter from Rogue. What?
you love her, and I'm just about to get to that. They have most of the same voice actors, and which is just great. It's so fun to hear them, and then you hear Rogue,
Yeah.
who is
Oh
aged,
my gosh.
which is fine. She's aged gracefully, but her voice has aged
No,
30
she just
years.
touched someone who is old.
Yeah, maybe that's
hers
the
and
old
Wolverine.
powers.
Rogue sounds like a 70-year-old woman now.
She does.
Yeah, pretending to be like 30.
So she's flirting with Gambit. She's like, Gambit. Oh,
Yeah.
Mon ami.
Wolverine has the same problem.
Yeah.
Like he
Wolverine
sounds
was hit
older.
and miss. There would be times where it was just exactly as I remembered, and then
I mean,
other times where it sounds totally different.
In the four lines,
In the four
he
lines
had.
that he has. Whoa, spoilers.
Yeah.
And then there's others though. Storm,
You
Beast.
tell me there's a lack of Wolverine in X-Men
Yeah.
97?
Yeah,
No,
well,
here's
yeah.
what they did. They said, hey, Wolverine was the focus. They even made Wolverine series after that original animated series came out. And they said, you know who's the leader? It's Cyclops. Let's
Yep.
make Cyclops cool again.
Boo.
No, I'm totally down for it because they made him cool.
They've redeemed him in this one. So after the original X-Men 97, they had X-Men Evolutions that came out, and that was in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Then Wolverine and the X-Men as
very
well.
much an angsty 2000s attempt at doing that thing. But yeah, that was more Wolverine-centric. This one, they fix it a little bit in that they make Cyclops the leader much more like in the comics, and they make him cool.
Yeah. Okay, so my initial impressions of this series.
We should clarify this BaconBit is coming around because the final episode just aired.
Just aired.
Today.
X-Men
Yeah, so all episodes are out now. Take a weekend, watch it.
On Disney
So
Plus.
my initial impressions.
Disney Plus?
Sam, you
Disney
know
Plus,
very
yeah.
well that I'm pretty dubious of anything Marvel Disney, right? And I love the X-Men. X-Men and Spider-Man were always like my go-to Marvel figures. I've never really liked the Avengers. And so I was like offended that they were going to revisit this. I was like, don't do it. Don't ruin it. We don't need to see it. So I started in the first 3 episodes. I was like, the voice acting is stiff. The animation is worse. And I talked about this on a few BaconBits. The animation, it seems like they just didn't really try. So the animation is very thick lines, and it's almost too stiff. Like it's almost like, all right, can they do action scenes really well? Because the characters just kind of stand there and their mouths move. It's almost like puppetry. I'm like, I am not in. This is kind of dumb. And that's when they started appealing to me. That's when they started bringing in old villains, and I'm not really going to mention who, and they kind of amp it up. And this is not this is a show where you need to watch from beginning to end because they amp up the story as you go. This isn't like, and X-Men used to have like certain stories that they have like 3 parts or whatnot, but you could almost pick up any episode and have fun with it.
It was very serialized, very
Serialized,
90s.
yes,
You got
exactly.
very serialized, and then you had arcs. I mean, they had arcs that were some 5-6 episodes long,
Sure.
which is unheard of for the time.
But
because
this
no
is
one liked
this
doing
is essentially a 10-episode arc.
that. Yeah, it's straight up a mini series, which is in the vein of what they do nowadays. Yeah.
And I wasn't really interested in how the team was like gathered in the first place and who the new leader was and where it was going and kind of retreading old ground. I was like, they're really trying here. But then the second half of the season really won me over. I think with a lot of the new themes, the new villains, and the way old villains were used, I was totally in. And there's sadness in this season without really going too far into it. There's real stakes. And so I was eventually won over. I'd give it a B right now. I'm going to rewatch it and kind of see how it is if I just watch it all at once. Because I did have a sour attitude in the beginning. But it did win me over.
Yeah.
All right, who wants to go next? Sam.
It's probably obvious right now that my nostalgia level for this is huge. And that first episode, when that opening credits sequence started in HD, I got chills. Same music, and they have redone the credits in this high definition. I won't say new art style.
Yeah.
It's slightly updated, I think is the way to say it. And it looks great. I know what you mean, Kent, about it did feel a little bit
It's
blocky.
more the dialogue scenes than the action scenes to me.
Yeah,
it's
and
like
I feel
Archer,
like
a little.
only certain characters, like Magneto, was really bad. He's
really bad.
The lines
and
on
only
his
at certain
face are
times,
so
too.
sharp.
And his suit was,
but
anyways.
if it's more drawn back, if it's not a close up on somebody's face, it looks great. It reminds me so much of the original series. I think they hit those notes really, really well to make this a continuation in the same style as the original series. We talked about it a little bit. I think I may have started the thought but didn't finish it. Rogue's voice it just doesn't match. Wolverine's is hit and miss. But then there's other original voice actors: Storm, Beast, Nightcrawler,
Storm's hair looks
Sinister.
different.
Yeah, she got a new haircut.
it's
for
comic
sure.
accurate.
But
I'll just say that.
Storm's hair always looks
Morph
different.
isn't in the opening credits.
Those original.
He switches in and out in the opening credits.
They made Morph like a character, even though they kind of wrote him out of the last show.
They switch out a lot of the opening credits throughout the episode.
Bishop's not in the opening credits.
Well, they switch him in.
Joel,
and
quit
out,
watching
'cause
the opening credits.
Nightcrawler comes in the opening credits and goes away.
Right.
And they have different ones come in.
But some of those original voice actors sound perfect. They sound
really
great.
good.
And then there's new voice actors. Some of them unfortunately have passed away. Others, for whatever reason, didn't come back. But I think the voice actor for Cyclops is great. For Gambit is great. They did a really good job there. And like you said, I thought the stories were great. There was a lot of... so I never really... I loved the X-Men. I had the action figures. I had the trading cards. But I never was a comic book kid.
Okay,
So I never bought comic books. I never got into them. But I know enough of the stories from my... the Marvel trading cards back in the day and stuff like that. And there were a lot of stories that I was familiar with that they implemented into this 10-episode arc, which was really cool.
Yeah.
So... hopefully comic fans can appreciate it. You'll probably get the ones who are going to be upset that it wasn't exactly comic accurate.
that's always
but
gonna
it
happen,
never
right?
was, right?
Yeah.
Especially for X-Men. the cartoon Phoenix Saga was not the Phoenix Saga, but it was still great and it was still enjoyable. Other than, I think there was one episode, it was a half episode that was Jubilee centric that just didn't fit at all.
It was after that episode ended.
That
I hated the show
up, for sure.
And then it picked up immediately.
And from there, it just got better and better and better. And you're right, there were emotional moments. I got the feels on a few moments
For
there.
sure.
I absolutely loved it. If you can't tell, I would get up early every Wednesday morning to watch it. And I felt like a kid again, getting up early. The only thing that maybe could have been better is if they released it on Saturday morning. So it could be a Saturday morning cartoon.
Truly.
But, it wasn't a perfect series. I didn't love everything about it, but I loved most of it. I would give it an A- right now with just the potential to rewatch again and go up to an A. And yes, obviously biased, but I'm a huge fan.
And so when season 2 comes out, you feel like it will probably just become a new series that you just watch and enjoy.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I'm a little worried for season 2.
Because they got rid of the writing staff?
Well, not so much. Well, a little bit of that, but when I look at it, I think when you watch this show, there's moments that you see the budget on screen and moments where you see that they really cheaped out on stuff.
Sure.
So like in the penultimate episode, second to last episode, there's a scene where they have all the X-Men that are walking, like the cool guy walk towards, and they do it in like a series of stills where it's like picture
cuts.
And then picture, and then picture, and you're looking at it and like, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Why? And there's something that happens, we'll talk in spoiler, where I saw it, and I was like, that's supposed to be a big moment, and they totally cheaped out on it in the worst way.
I think I know why they did it there, though. Let's not forget to go back.
Well, that's
there.
a weird moment too. We'll talk about that. Yeah. So, I mean, I read the comics when I was like 5. Like I got the comics. I was obsessed with Wolverine and the Hulk for some reason. Those are my two characters I was obsessed with.
You're an angry kid, clearly.
Oh, definitely was. Yeah, I definitely was. So, I was really into that stuff. And, the TV show, I watched it as much as I could. And I knew that it wasn't following exactly the comics and wasn't doing that. This show does a better job at following certain stories in the comics and adapting them in ways that fit into the story. But at the same time, there are moments where they kind of jump the shark. Like there are times where they do stuff where I'm like, you kind of went big on that and it wasn't really earned, but okay.
Yeah.
But the writing in it is fantastic. The writing is better, I think, than the original series was.
I would hope so.
The animation.
Because now we're in our 30s and 40s.
Yeah. Well, and you're gearing it towards people in their 30s and 40s, no longer kids and stuff. But like they're more patient in the series. But I feel like why I'm worried about season 2 is similar like Mandalorian season 1 to season 2. Disney didn't know what they had with the first season of Mandalorian, and then when season 2 came along, they threw lots of money and lots of ideas at it, and it changed the fundamental aspect of the show and made it bigger stakes and made it different. With what they've done with the writing staff, and now that they see this as success, and there's obviously things in the work. I mean, Kevin Feige, this kind of slipped under his radar. Like honestly, they talk about it like this is not something that the high marble brass was talking about. So it'll be interesting when they actually realize what they got. They're going to be doing spinoffs with Spider-Man 98. They've already announced that.
Really?
What? They were talking about it. They've like softly announced that they're going to try and redo the Spider-Man. I mean, they showed so many characters in this last episode that they are straight up priming this for Avengers cartoons and things like that. And honestly, if they do it with the same attention they did here and not with the attention they're giving their live action Marvel shows, I'm kind of here for it, because honestly, those live action Marvel shows have largely been disappointing. And if they do stuff more in the vein of this, it'll be cool. But I'm also really worried they're going to get in their own way.
Is this near the top of Marvel TV shows for you guys?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's the best Marvel animated show, at least Disney Marvel. It's better than What If.
What If, okay.
Yeah, I guess that's really the only other one.
I would say like Marvel TV shows. I mean, I kind of have a more eclectic takes on this. I'd say Moon Knight is up there. The Daredevil TV show, which I don't know if you can really count that one in this.
Because that's really high quality.
It's really not. Yeah. So Moon Knight I really liked. I really liked WandaVision up until like the final episode.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's right. I mean, it is far better than Echo and Miss Marvel and
not
Hawkeye.
She-Hulk though, right?
Oh my gosh! And do we
I actually
need to talk
kind of
that
liked
one?
Echo. But I don't know that you can compare this to any of them.
You really
it's a
can't.
cartoon
You really
that
can't.
is made for those of us who watched the original cartoon.
Yeah, and it's really good. I'd say I'm probably right in the same ballpark as you. Can be kind of B- depending on.
But you'll
what
watch it
episode.
again.
I'll watch it again. I'm watching it with my kids.
Okay.
They're 3 episodes behind, so I left them on kind of a cliffhanger. I probably should get back to that because it was really emotional. So
Joel, before you leave, because I know you don't want to hear spoilers.
I don't want spoilers.
Could you sing us out, please?
No spoilers. No spoilers.
Okay, Joel, where are you going to go?
Bathroom.
Okay, we'll call you in 15 minutes. Zach, are you going to stay?
All right.
Yeah.
Zach's still
guys,
here?
I mean, I have nothing to say, so I'm just going to sit back where I
spoil
was.
it away to Zach. I mean, this is for, as you know, you guys have listened to Bacon Bits and maybe haven't seen the movie. Do you guys listen to Bacon Bits? The
Absolutely.
spoiler parts?
I've got about
You're asking me
four-
if I listen to things?
I've got about 4 or 5 Bacon Bits saved to my phone for movies that I hope to
Oh, so you
eventually
wait.
watch
You
sometime.
do wait.
If I don't care about the movie, I'll listen to it.
Okay.
But if it's one that I'm like, oh yeah, I want to watch that movie, then I might listen to the first half. Or if I really want to watch it and I know I'm going to see it soon,
Yeah.
then I won't listen to it at all.
I listen to all of them. Like movie reviews and stuff. Most of them, even if I want to see it, I'll go through the spoiler sections of it
You
and listen
monster.
to it and stuff. Yeah, I don't really feel like there's many movies
I'm
that,
always curious if people just stick around there like, I'm lost, so just explain it away.
To be honest, like most, this is going to kind of come out as bragging or something like that. Like I've got like extreme pattern recognition with ADHD.
Sure.
And so very few movies.
You can see it coming.
Very few movies are able to pull that off.
Right.
So like when I listen to spoilers, I'm like, well, you can just watch trailers and look online. You pretty much have it all figured out before it even happens.
Yeah.
So like, I'm not really worried about
And
that.
Zach doesn't mind about spoilers
Yeah.
because
I don't believe in them.
he'll never watch the show anyways, right?
No.
you should.
I think they've kind of ruined a lot of movies. Is that everyone feels like they need to be twisty all over the place,
I
and
agree.
it's kind of ruined everything.
That's why I don't care.
Yeah.
Hey, guess what? The good guy wins. Wahoo.
Not on this show.
Gambit.
Hey, okay.
we're in
So
spoilers.
generally we go in order, and we don't need to like spend too much time on spoilers that don't really matter. Maybe ones that you have questions about. That's kind of where we go with that. But just to kind of explain how the show starts, Xavier's gone, and Cyclops is leading the team. And almost, I think it's the end of the first episode. Like they're dealing with a lot of hate groups essentially, and it retreads a lot of the '90s Spider-Man or X-Men stuff going on. And then Magneto comes and says, "Hey, I'll lead the team. Like I will.
It's in Xavier's will.
Yeah, it's in
that
his
he
will. Like
gets it,
I
that
will
he's leading
continue
it.
his legacy, and I'll lead the team. And guess what? I'm trying to be good, right?
Yeah.
And that
For a
amps
minute.
up the hate towards them and the riots and stuff like that big time.
It seems like in this show, the X-Men were like liked by the public.
Originally,
The time
think
has passed.
They insinuated that because they
were
told
trusted.
everyone that Xavier died.
Right.
They didn't tell him that he left, went off world.
Sure.
So they thought he was assassinated, and he almost became this martyr. And so, yeah, people are their ideas towards mutants have softened. The X-Men are kind of in a good spot. And then suddenly this war criminal comes and takes over.
Yeah.
let's be fair. I mean, humanity is very fickle in this show. They switch,
Oh, yeah.
they
Yeah.
switch their opinion
Several times.
almost by episode. They go back and forth.
One part where I think they jumped the shark really early is because I'm fascinated by the character of Jean Grey. I think there's so much fun
Yep.
psychology there. And immediately, I think they just try to like go, "Hey, you don't know what's coming," and
Yeah.
they subvert it and they say, even though she and Cyclops are married and they have a child, she's not really Jean Grey. And I was
Yep.
like, this is too soon. Give us an entire season
Yep.
based on this arc because it could go to some really cool
Yeah.
places. I don't feel like they ever
They finished it too quickly.
way too quickly.
Yeah.
Way too quickly.
That was a shame.
I mean, they basically have like in the 10 episodes, they have 4 really good comic stories that they tried to loop together
Yeah.
that they shoved into this season. And they were really well done, but at the same time, like I said, jumping the shark, like they almost resolve way too quickly.
I wonder if they didn't know how much they were going to be able to do.
Yeah,
So they were just
you
like,
might be
hey,
right.
we might only have one season of this. Let's cram it in there.
Yeah.
It's interesting though too. Like they really want to bring in the arc because they've had Cable, who you may have seen if you haven't seen the cartoon. He's in the Deadpool 2 movie, and they've introduced Cable was in
He's
the cartoon back
fantastic
in the
in
day,
Deadpool
right?
too.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
shows
he
up
was
in
in there.
several
And
episodes.
they kind of
Several
said
but they
he's-
never really tell you who he is.
They never tell you. In this show, they just spell it out 19 times.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think maybe that's why they
think
gave us the story of who is this Jean Grey? Is she Madeline Pryor? Like, who is it?
Yeah, I think Cable ended up being more important in the series than Madeline Pryor.
Yes.
But they had
Yeah.
to explain it. So
They had
that's
to.
why they did it so quickly.
So you think that's why they rushed it?
Yeah, I think
okay.
so.
Yeah.
Okay, what are some
So-
other major, like, what
Well-
came up next?
So, I mean, you had the Jubilee episode, which I didn't hate as much, but it's definitely a bottle episode, which is weird to get a bottle episode
It
in
just-
the middle of a 10
and it
episode
didn't make
arc.
any sense. Where did the whole
It
Mojo
was a
Super
development
Nintendo
thing.
come from?
I mean,
like,
that was out of place. They didn't really explain much, but it's really more of a development episode to show the new guy that's Sunspot,
Yeah, Sunspot.
that's some mutant that she picks up, and Jubilee herself, who is far better in this series than she is in the
great.
original 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
She's okay.
it was a bottle episode. It was a bottle episode straight up. And it felt like, I mean, for a lot of this series, I feel like they looked at the X-Men cartoons from the 90s and said, okay, Wolverine got tons of screen time. Rogue got tons of screen time.
Right.
Jean Grey got tons of screen time. We didn't give a lot of screen time to Cyclops, and he was kind of the Boy Scout that no one was really interested in or anything like that. And Jubilee was a whiny little teenager. So they're like, we got to and Storm as well. Like these three, they're like, we didn't spend much time with these. We're going to double down and focus almost exclusively on these three characters.
How'd you guys feel about Storm's arc? What happened
So
to Storm's
Storm
arc?
loses her powers, basically takes a bullet for Magneto that's not a bullet. It's
Which was a cool moment.
A power-destroying laser gun.
Radiator gun thing.
And I actually liked how they did that. They used the same technology that works on the collars that they put on the mutants. And since we're talking about questions and spoilers, I didn't really feel that she earned her powers back.
Yeah.
No.
Forge invents something, he uses it, it doesn't work.
There's a weird demon
and
owl
then
with
suddenly
like venom
she has
teeth.
her powers again. I mean,
Yeah.
was it just me? Did I not catch that? Or,
I mean, was it essentially the powers of belief that brought her powers back?
Oh yeah, it was her fighting the demon owl
guess.
that came out of nowhere and was haunting them and poisoning them, and like no one explained what the demon owl was, and then it got trapped by some book. This is such a weird arc.
that was a weird part for sure.
By the way, as a Man of Steel lover, the showrunner is a big fan of Man of Steel, and there's many references to Man of Steel, especially Storm's flight when she gets her powers
cool.
back. And I was like, I like that. I was a big
There
fan.
are cool moments in
Yeah.
that arc too. Like none of it is like I'd struggle to say it's wasted because there are cool things in that arc as you go through, and it kind of plays in the over thing. But of all the arcs they get into, Storm's is by far the most meh.
Okay.
When it feeds into the entire picture.
I didn't mind that it didn't make sense. I liked it. I liked how they emphasized almost a sisterhood between Jean and Storm. And then when they were separated, that was difficult for them. And then when they were reunited, that was a good moment.
The arc just felt like filler to me. Like there's nothing wrong with how they did Storm or her relationships or what they built out of it. But like if you took that arc out of the series and made it 3 episodes shorter, you wouldn't actually lose a whole lot.
Okay, so which arcs did you like, right? Because then you're left with maybe the big one. Were there any other mini ones that we were leaving out?
The weird Gambit, Rogue, Magneto love triangle.
So one part of this,
weird.
and right in the middle, Magneto has kind of been obsessed with the island of Genosha. And Genosha has always been the mutant island where they can run free and do their thing. Yes.
Zach is confused.
Not from Princess Diaries.
Okay.
Yep.
Zach, no one can hear
Nope, Anne
the eyes that
Hathaway
you're
is
giving.
not
He's
in this.
confused. I'm like, Anne
wait.
Hathaway's in this picture?
Genovia,
Yeah, Genovia.
Genosha. There's another G.
Isn't that a type of ham at Subway?
Yeah.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, and they go into Genosha. In fact, like that's kind of where like all the bad mutants hang out, the ones that we've seen in the series past. And there's this giant attack on Genosha. Sorry, Joel, we're still going. and it's the Sentinels, right? Is Master Mold, is he the one behind it?
Yeah.
And Master Mold is like this big giant, but he's like a really smart and clever and very destructive Sentinel.
Yep.
Am I getting this right? Like, or is there
it's a giant Sentinel that
is it a
kinda got
cyborg or
hijacked.
just a Sentinel?
It's a Sentinel.
Okay.
Yeah. It's basically the Sentinel that manufactured the other Sentinel.
That's right.
He's the one that sits in the chair and the Sentinels like pop out
That's
of his
one.
stomach.
Right.
Like, a
Like, hence
manufacturing
Master
plant.
Mold.
And I
And
think
he has, like, gold crown.
the X-Men have killed Master Mold probably
Several
more times than
times.
I can count
Yeah,
at this
several
point.
times.
Yet somehow he keeps showing up. And I guess it's Bolivar Trask who
Yeah.
invented
Yep.
the Sentinels. He's probably just rebuilding them out in the
Yeah.
desert by himself.
So Master Mold attacks Genosha when they're having this big old party.
And all the mutants are there.
It felt like a forgettable episode up until that point.
Yeah, well, and you have like the weird. So the Magneto and Rogue thing came in from the comics, and that one caught me off guard. Is like Rogue and Magneto kind of had a relationship because he's the only mutant that she can touch without sucking their powers away from them. And
Yeah.
so there's a bit of her and Gambit and her and Magneto and this weird little love triangle thing that goes on.
Right.
And Gambit finally is like, all right, whatever. Magneto goes to take over as the king of Genosha and the king of the mutants, as well as being the leader of Xavier's school. And Rogue is going to be his queen as trying to sell it. And so there's this kind of funny, like they do this big dance musical number in the sky.
Yeah.
And then through that, Rogue's like, oh, actually, I don't really love you.
The sparks weren't there.
And then suddenly giant Sentinel attack murdering mutants.
And literally murdering.
Yeah.
Right? Like people are dying.
Kind of
People
graphic.
are dying.
Yeah, really
Cartoon.
graphic.
In
Way more than
graphic
the
ways.
original series for
Yeah,
sure.
because you expect it to be kind of be like G.I. Joe where like, pew-pews are flying over people's heads.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
no one's going to
Yeah.
get hurt.
No, they're
here.
getting crushed by
There's
debris.
blood in
and-
this one.
Yeah.
to the point where what happens?
Gambit makes a final desperate attack to try and save Rogue because Magneto got blasted away and you don't know if he made it. Gambit is on a motorcycle, rides up and tries to get to the Sentinel and it stabs him with like a tentacle thing through his side. And then he takes his energy power and turns the entire Sentinel into like one of his cards that he energizes, and it blows up in this giant explosion, and Gambit's gone.
So Gambit was always my favorite.
was he?
As a
He's awesome.
9-year-old,
'Cause
he's
it's the
so
attitude.
cool. He's got the attitude, he's got the accent, and his power is really,
awesome.
really cool. And as a child, I always asked myself, why doesn't Gambit just walk up to a Sentinel and touch it?
Yeah.
And I got my answer.
Right.
Yep.
Holy smokes.
Yeah, that was a cool arc.
A cool arc, but really sad. Like they literally, and nothing in a comic book show lasts forever, but they put Gambit in the ground. They have a funeral for him.
Yeah.
And
That's what
it's
was shocking,
sad.
because you watch a Saturday morning cartoon, you're like, well, no one's really dead.
Right.
No,
You know,
and
they're
they-
asleep.
and like, you know, Magneto got blasted away. He comes back. There's other
Right.
people that made it and stuff like that. And Gambit does not. And
Did you guys see the end credit scene?
Oh, I did.
Okay, there is an end credit scene, and it's
There-
you have to get through their goofy little 90s.
there's a comic story
Yeah.
involving.
Hey guys, you know
this,
we're in
so-
spoiler section. We can just
Yeah.
talk about it.
Right.
So at the end, we're going to jump past the final act of the cartoon.
Well, do we want to? Because I think that arc builds into the final act of the entire thing.
okay, so jump right in.
Yeah, so I mean, like Magneto goes crazy. Like he uses his powers to basically take down everything on
a
Earth.
global
like
EMP.
global EMP blows the whole thing to shreds. And Charles Xavier, right before that, you see he's not dead, and he's leaving the aliens to come back, and he makes it back to try and save Magneto.
He's like, things are bad.
And he comes back to his mutants after they've been attacked by these second era of Sentinels, where it's people that have been infected by this virus that comes from the first couple episodes,
Yeah.
where they can basically be turned into Sentinels with some radiation, and everyone's like these super powered Sentinels that do stuff. So they attack the mansion, they fight him off. It's the only cool moment Wolverine has in the entire series, is where he's like slicing them up, trying
Yeah.
to save Rogue, who's, I don't know, we can get too deep, but she's basically unconscious because of some revenge tour thing she went in their first encounter with the Sentinels. And then Xavier goes to save Magneto. They get in this weird like mind palace fight where he fights Magneto, shuts him down, and then realizes we got to bring him back to save the Earth. And some big bad that's just like, I don't even know how to describe the big bad on this.
So essentially, there's this new character. His name is Bastion, and it's kind of this sneak villain because they're yes,
Bastion?
yeah, from Neverending Story.
Yeah.
Yeah, say my name, call my name.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Moonchild.
Moonchild, actually.
Yep.
So they do this thing
This is
where
why
they're
I got
like,
to do YouTube. I'm funnier in
I-
person.
because he's given the eyes. The eyes are the funny thing.
Yep.
And so, but they do this sneaky thing where they're like, "Well, Magneto's really the bad guy again, guys." And they're like, "Just kidding. It's Mr. Sinister. Aren't you afraid?" And you're like, "Oh, this is kind of cool. I love Sinister."
And then
they're
just
like,
kidding.
And then like, actually, it's kind of this normal looking sort of like fancy dude from the future. Like, it's totally fine. His name is Bastion, and he's just kind of more devious. He's really slow moving, and he's been plotting this whole thing using the villains to his own. I guess at their own disposal too.
And frustrating Cable, because Cable's come back in time to try and stop him specifically from killing his mom. So
and
that's
essentially,
the big thing that goes
his
down.
story, I wasn't really clear on his powers, honestly. But he was this super prodigy mutant. They call him like Omega level mutants, which I love in this series. Because I'm like, that sounds kind of scary, right?
Yeah.
Omega mutants. He's one of these mutants that was like, didn't understand his powers. His mom was not great to him.
Yep.
And Xavier went to go get him and wanted him to be in the first class of the X-Men. And the mom said, "No, I never want you. I never come back." And then the mom told him, because he's like, "Did he come? Did he come to get me?" And she said, "Yeah, he never wants you in the school." So from that moment on, and then with a little bit of history, he learned to hate his own kind.
He basically becomes Syndrome from Incredibles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so basically,
When everyone's super.
right?
No one is.
No one is. And so he wanted to stop mutants, saying that if mutants keep being born, it is going to destroy the rest of the human population. I'm going to control these Sentinels and get them to take out mutants.
Yep.
And so he's using all the other villains to kind of just, for his own purposes.
Yeah. And then he also, like, his ability is like he like augments himself with the same virus, and then he just takes on tons of powers. So he becomes this crazy like apocalypse archangel hybrid thing that can't be killed, and it's really intense. And I mean, yeah.
And that's where it seemed like it got a little crazy in the last 3 episodes, because there was like a
the
different
last
arc.
episode especially.
Because there was Magneto, who Xavier was trying to stop his mind palace thing, that there was an asteroid that he was sending to the Earth.
Yep.
Or was that Bastion? And then Bastion was trying to kill all the X-Men.
Bastion was trying to use Magneto to send it to the Earth.
Okay.
And then was trying to use Sinister to also send it to
So
the
were you
Earth.
confused at all by the end? Because there's just so much going on
There's
at once.
a lot.
There was a
going
lot,
on.
and a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's X-Men
It's
cartoon.
like there was some punches and it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Except for Wolverine, which I suppose if we're getting it towards the end of spoilers, there is that very famous comic scene where You think he kills Magneto, literally stabs him through the chest, which is pretty cool. And then Magneto proceeds to tear the adamantium out of Wolverine. And that's what Chad mentioned before, where
So mad about this scene.
I think that would have been too graphic to show. So it basically shows a still photo
Yeah,
of
they
that
chickened out.
moment.
For like half
Yeah.
a second and it's really badly drawn. It just looks
Yeah.
like a meme from like a Family Guy thing where Peter gets really injured and his arms are different areas. I'm like, he's
Yeah.
got glass in him and stuff.
Right.
It looks like they got Seth MacFarlane to come and say, hey, if you saw Wolverine dying in a horrible way, could you just draw that for us?
Yeah.
And like, you didn't get his, like, it's a cool moment. There's a lot of payoff. Again, you're not making this for kids. You're making this for 30-somethings and 40-somethings.
I think they're making it for kids too, though.
They're not though. That's the thing.
They're trying to.
But you can't make it for both at the same
Right,
time,
and that's
have it be
The fatal flaw, isn't it?
yeah. So like it was a bit of like personality disorder where they couldn't decide what they wanted to do, and they went to the kid thing. And so
Well,
just
it seems
leaving
like
to
they
it.
had 20 episodes written, and they crammed it into 10.
Well, they do have a lot
I
of
think season 2 was
written
already written.
Yeah, but
as
I mean,
well.
with all the stories they're using and rushing here.
Yeah, they
Right.
really shoved a lot in there.
I was happy that they didn't focus on Wolverine in the beginning, and really by episode 10, when he had still done absolutely nothing, I actually found myself a little disappointed. So my hope for the next season is that we get a good Wolverine arc of how does he move on from losing
He spent the last
his
episode
adamantium.
in a hospital bed in a coma.
Right.
Like that, when the world's in up for destruction, he's just not there, not
Okay.
present, gone.
Yeah.
Like that's not like that was the most inconsistent thing with the 90s cartoon is that like they intentionally like wrote him out of the show almost because he does nothing the entire show.
Right.
Okay.
Nothing.
So the show ends. Do we need to talk about how they won the day if they did?
Good guys win.
Good guys,
Good guys
win.
win, but
Cliffhangers.
Called it.
but
They somehow get transported
zapped?
through time,
Yeah.
which really makes no sense.
Some
and
of them
differently, some to the past, some to the future. Who knows where Wolverine and Morph are, which, Morph is also a disappointment, but we
Well,
don't
yeah,
need to
for
talk
sure.
about
Yeah,
that.
well, I mean, they were at the hospital on the planet, so I doubt they were actually impacted by it at all.
I thought
They're
they
gonna
were
be back
still on the
Earth.
Blackbird on the asteroid, so
I
I don't
don't
know. We'll see what happens there.
But yeah, you got someone went to the future, someone to the past. The ones that went to the past, they meet Apocalypse.
yeah.
Before he's Apocalypse, where he's the first mutant.
I'm
But
into
we
that.
also see the very last thing is Apocalypse at the present day holding one of Gambit's cards, which is
Yeah,
kind of
Which
intriguing.
means he's going to be the Horseman of Death.
which is going to be cool.
For
is that
sure.
a comic accurate story? Do you
Yeah,
know?
it is.
Okay,
Yes,
I'm
it
not familiar with that
Okay,
one.
yeah.
So
They
I
did a good
will,
job.
Pretty good.
I will
It's pretty
gladly
good.
wait
Yeah.
until we get season 2.
And I was
Hopefully
actually shocked.
next
I'm like,
year.
they are going to bring him back good because then he has a chance.
Thanks, Zach.
A ghost just turned Netflix on.
Was that?
It was you.
In the
You,
baking cave.
you lean back on the couch. You're kicking back,
yeah,
relaxing.
Zach
and-
sat on the remote.
No, the remote's clear over here.
Haunted.
Like the TV just
Okay,
turned on.
okay. So that's a good place to wrap it up with the Netflix theme song there. So yeah, you guys overall, you enjoyed it. You're going to watch it again.
Absolutely.
Hopes for season 2. Is there a certain story? Is there a certain character that you want them to focus on? Like maybe Wolverine a
Yeah, I
little
think
bit more.
I said it.
Please just
Wolverine.
give Wolverine like 2 more lines. Like, please.
Give him something to do. I'm ready to get back into animated Wolverine.
I hope they stay away from the Dark Phoenix story because they've just gone into that so much.
Well, they use the Phoenix.
They
in
use the
this
Phoenix for a
as like a
minute.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yes,
Right.
very
just to
much
get him.
so.
That was a dumb jump the shark moment.
Yeah.
Maybe they will. I think we're kind of done with Phoenix, especially if you've watched the original
okay with
cartoon.
that.
They do so much with her
Yeah,
in
they
that.
covered it
so.
a lot.
Okay, so overall, you guys liked it. That's good to hear. If you're listening and you have made it this far and you enjoyed the show or didn't enjoy it, it maybe didn't live up to your expectations, or maybe it was still kind of like still stuck in the 90s and hasn't really aged well, let us know. Thanks, guys, for joining us.
Thanks for inviting us to talk about
Yep,
it. That's
thanks.
awesome.
Bye, Zach. Bye. Joel,
Joel.
you can come back now.
X-Men's like, but what if civil rights?